On today's Locked On Bama, I'm going to welcome in John Garcia from SI.com and from the Locked On Family of Networks and podcast. He's just a great dude. He's a recruiting specialist, and there's been so much happening with Alabama lately. Got to have him on today to talk about what's been going on and what will be going on with the Alabama Crimson Tide. So let's get started.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's normally him. But today, it's John Garcia. We hit the upgrade button. John, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Luke. How about you?
Doing great, man. Well, let's just get right into it. Look, I was going to lead today with Caleb Downs. To me, that's the biggest news outside of Arch Manning committing. I mean, Malachi Nelson's been committed forever to USC. Arch Manning to Texas for a while now. Those, of course, and Nico, I am a believer.
Almost there.
Okay, close enough. They're all, those quarterbacks have all committed, and they're usually 1, 2, 3, somewhere in that order. I thought Caleb Downs, he's the next biggest commitment to me. He's incredible. I think he could, if he weren't playing that position, I think he could make an argument for best player in the country. That's my opinion. We'll get to that. But I just saw some news. Keely will be visiting Alabama this weekend, and it's already got Notre Dame fans shook.
It should. Why wouldn't it, right? This is the prize, the crown jewel, the class headliner, whatever you want to quantify it as in the Notre Dame class. This is the guy, right? Arguably the best pass rusher in the entire country, at least from an athletic profile standpoint. A guy who, took down Arch Manning 3 or 4 times when they played last year with relative ease. This is the premier pass rusher in the United States. Been a long time Notre Dame verbal commitment. Alabama and Florida, kind of the two programs that have tried to hang around. Both of them got visits earlier this year. And now, obviously, big news is that Keely is going to return to Tuscaloosa. And I think there is not only a sense that you've always got to watch out for Bama if you're a Notre Dame fan or any fan, right? If Bama wants your guy, keep an eye on Bama because Saban, the whole deal. But I think the fact that Keely has now made multiple visits amid this kind of spark that Alabama is on, from a recruiting momentum standpoint. We just wrote this morning at SI.com, the hottest teams in the summer right now. And we did it by conference, and Alabama edged everyone else in the SEC. And I think nationally that would be a challenge to uphold Alabama as well. So I think the timing of it, especially being the only visit weekend that remains before the season gets going, and he picks Tuscaloosa instead of Gainesville or South Bend, I think that says a lot about the interest that Keely has in the Crimson Tide, and now he'll get more intimate time. There's no football, there's no practices, there's no anything going on in town. It's about recruiting for the next couple of days. So, yeah, Notre Dame fans should be a little bit worried here.
Okay, so for those who don't know, that maybe don't follow recruiting as intimately as we do, Keely, just tell us about him overall.
Yeah, just a physical specimen, 6'4", 6'5", 245 pounds or so, just a rocked up kid who looks like he's already playing college football. I think if you lined him up right next to Will Anderson, they would profile similarly, just from a height, weight, arm length standpoint. I'm not saying Keely is explosive or game-wrecking as Will Anderson, because obviously that's the pinnacle of college football right now. Keely's still getting into his senior year of high school, but he is built in that mold of that new age edge rusher. And a lot of that stuff translates on tape. Electric first step, has really come into his own from a technical standpoint. He's got some bend. He's developing some polish and some counter moves beyond just beating the guy in front of him with pure speed and explosiveness. And he's putting together a lot of production here in the process at Berkeley Prep High School there in the Tampa, Florida area. So, yeah, he's become kind of the almost consensus premier pass rusher in this class. And he's been committed to Notre Dame for so long, but it tells you how valuable he is that Alabama, Florida, and many others are continuing to recruit him despite him saying all the right things and to this point doing all the right things relative to Marcus Freeman and the Irish.
All right, I want to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across all Locked In College Network, and they are the sponsor of the John Garcia segment. So thank you, LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions may apply. Also need to tell you about Bet Online. Look, Bet Online is just awesome. It's fantastic. I use it. It's great. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find your favorite sports events, whatever you want, at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, even golf, whatever you want. They got it at BetOnline.net. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have it all. They got you covered. Go to betonline.net today. BetOnline is where the game starts. John, okay, so Alabama has been, arguably the hottest team in recruiting these last couple. It seems like ever since Peter Woods committed to Clemson, Alabama was like, okay, we got to straighten this thing out. And they've done exactly that. We talked about Caleb Downs a lot on yesterday's podcast, but your thoughts on him?
I love him. I think he is everything you said and more. I think he is arguably the best football player in the country today at the high school level, whether you talk about the athletic profile, the explosiveness, the instincts, the IQ, the versatility in the secondary. You could legitimately rank him. We're doing our rankings here soon at SI, and I was talking to a confidant of mine last night, and it was like we could rank him #1 corner, #1 nickel, or #1 safety in our projections and be okay with it. And that's just not something we say every day. The last guy who was kind of in that conversation where you're like, he's the #1 guy no matter what position, is another Bama guy, Minkah Fitzpatrick. He was one that we initially were like, that's a corner all the way. But then he was just so instinctive when he moved to safety that we're like, oh, you got to bring him inside and just let him roam and have a full 53 yards of lateral ability to make an impact. And I think we see a lot of that with Caleb Downs. The football IQ's off the charts, the twitch, the translation. We talk about processing with quarterbacks going through their reads. The processing that he displays on tape for play diagnosis, run versus pass, route tree, the pattern. I mean, he jumps passes so easily. There's just such a high floor with Caleb Downs that I think he's as can't miss as it gets in this class, including Arch Manning, including any other quarterback you throw out there. He'd be among the first we talk about in the high floor can't miss scenario when we get to that point.
Yeah, and that Minkah is a good comp. I mean, that's the one we've sort of been using. And I think we said all this yesterday. I'm happy with Jimmy and me because yesterday we said the same thing: high floor, high ceiling. And even though, look, we get it. I mean, if you're Arch Manning, if you're any of these other quarterbacks, you get an extra point. I mean, just like the quarterbacks get an extra point when the team wins. I mean, it's like this quarterback's undefeated. Well, I mean, sometimes that quarterback, no offense, is Jay Barker. And I mean, he's just trying not to throw picks, in 92. That's the only thing he has to do. Don't lose the game. And there's something to be said for that. But quarterbacks get, too much credit and too much grief sometimes. So, okay, Caleb Downs, Jaleel Hurley, Tony Mitchell. I mean, you could make the case that it's already one of the best defensive classes in recruiting history. Cormani McClain was the guy that everybody's asking about now. If Alabama can solidify him, they arguably have the top 4 defensive backs in this class, and all of them are 5 stars, at least by some service. Some of them by all services, but all of them are 5-star in one service. Do you feel like Alabama's the leader for Cormani McClain now?
I think it's really tight. There's a lot of buzz about him going to Florida Friday night for their Friday Night Lights event. I'll be there, so I'll let you know, Bama fans, if he shows up. But look, his timeline has always been an extended one. He has never talked about making an early decision. So the kind of he's a Lakeland kid, Lakeland, Florida. There is a bit of a pipeline to the Florida Gators there, but between the Gators and the Canes, that in-state feel is more talked about because those are 2 new coaching staffs. The Alabama angle is kind of the long-standing one. Absolutely loves T-Rob, loves Nick Saban. The development that is, proven at a school like Alabama absolutely has his attention. He talks about development in the NFL as really the deciding criteria. So you understand Corey Raymond in Florida, certainly being strong contenders there with his reputation, but you throw Saban in that mix at corner in particular, and it just holds a little bit different weight. So there is certainly a contingent of people in the state of Florida that think it's just a matter of time before he ends up in Tuscaloosa for good. I would say that Florida's probably the primary threat at this point. So if he does reverse course on his timeline, maybe you keep an eye on the Gators. But if he sticks with I'm going the distance, signing day, all that, then I think Alabama's in an absolutely great position for Cormani because he's still got official visits to take. He's still got unofficial visits to take up to Tuscaloosa. So I do think that there's still a lot ahead for Alabama to push. If it's got a lead, to push that lead even further for McClain, who will open up as the number one corner for us at SI when the rankings debut. He's in the running for number one overall. This is a freakazoid athlete. If Caleb Downs has the highest floor among non-quarterbacks in the country, Cormani's got the highest ceiling. 19 interceptions the last 2 years after transitioning from wide receiver. Kid doesn't even really know what he's doing from a technical standpoint yet he's the most productive corner in America. So just eerie what Alabama might be able to do in the secondary. Even without McClain, I think this group has a lot of unbelievable traits, and they're all versatile, right? Tony Mitchell, free safety, but physical, can play strong, maybe some nickel. I think Jaleel Hurley, extremely long, has some corner vibes, but also can probably play with free safety range. Obviously, we talked about the versatility with Downs. Cormani, same kind of deal there. So no matter how this class shakes out, it's going to be a whole lot of length, production, athleticism, and versatility, which is right what the doctor orders for any defensive secondary class.
And you top that off with they got a commitment from Jalen Mbakwe the other day, for the 24 class, which makes it even more ridiculous. But I'm going to tell you, John, you might be too young. I don't know. Anytime somebody says freakazoid, all I can think about is Midnight Star and reporting to the dance floor. So maybe Cormani McClain will report to the capstone. So let's go ahead and take a break. Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about two guys that may be committing to Alabama very soon. I know that's an awkward pause. I'm sorry about that. That's for the audio podcast. That's not for the YouTube. But sometimes we got to work it all in. All right. Hunter Osborne will be committing on Monday. This is a guy that I've loved. I mean, I think he's great, and I know he's borderline top 10 in the state. But this year, borderline top 10 in the state means you're probably in the top 100, 125 players in the country. So I think he's great. I think it's a great pipeline for Alabama to keep open. And I was worried for a while there because it seemed like he was destined for either Clemson or Texas. And I know they've made his final list, but I certainly do feel pretty confident about him on Monday.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, the strength of the position in the state. The D-line group in Alabama this class is ridiculous. To miss on a player like Peter Woods and then have, in theory, Hunter Osborne as your rebound, I mean, that is ridiculous. Any one of those guys would be a headliner in their own right. Osborne, a little bit of a different prospect, 6'3", 6'4", 250 pounds or so. You talk about physically well built. I mean, this is – if Keon Keely looks like Will Anderson, then Hunter Osborne looks like those guys after a year or two in the SEC. Hunter is built and well put together. And I think he's got some inside-out pass rushing ability, still not really scratching the surface of what he's going to be, but I think he's got a lot of long-term potential at the next level, and I think that's why Bama's kind of come back around on him. It seems like they were up and down earlier, like a year ago, 6 months ago, but now it does feel like he is a priority for the Crimson Tide. So I do think that will be enough to keep him, from Birmingham, head over west to Tuscaloosa, despite Clemson, despite Texas, that has really, made a strong effort nationally in this class of 2023. Clemson on the D-line, especially with Peter Woods, Chris Vizina, some of the Alabamians that they have reeled in. But I do think Hunter Osborne is going to stay in state at the end of the day.
I just want to state this publicly. I'm not giving up on Peter Woods to Bama until the 2 weeks after signing day. I need 2 weeks after signing day to give up on that dream. I still believe Alabama is in the thick of this thing, and hopefully that will work out. And I believe it based on some moderate knowledge and also just a, fingers crossed kind of thing, because I think Peter Woods is fantastic.
Same.
You feel the same?
Yeah, not only Bama's going to stay in that fight, right? I mean, you just have to, right? He's, for me, the number one player in the state of Alabama. I think he has the highest floor in the state, whether he stays outside or moves inside down the line, depending on how he fills out. Just a true game record. There's not that many big physical prospects that are so comfortable out on the edge and in space like he is. So yeah, the production is elite there. And I think, yeah, Bama's going to stay in that fight. So we'll see come, I think December 14th is early signing day this year. So between that and Christmas, we'll get our answer with Peter Woods. And yeah, you can't blame him for staying in the mix. And look, sometimes that's what it takes, right? We talk about big flips late in the cycle every single year. So it was shocking to a degree when Peter picked Clemson. So we'll see if Bama can counter when it counts most.
Miles McVay is the last prospect we'll talk about out of East St. Louis. Look, all I know for sure is if you're from East St. Louis, you're going to be a dude. I mean, he's a dude, and when you look at him, that's a grown man, and I feel like he's going to be committing to Alabama. I think it's mid-August. I don't want to even say a date. Is it like the 11th or something?
Yeah, let me check the DMs. They actually just DM'd me, invited me to the ceremony. Won't be able to make it if you're listening, Mr. McVay. But yeah, that will be a huge situation to track. August 11th is the day that he is going to come off the board here. So yeah, just about 2 weeks from now. Yeah, Alabama's stolen some momentum here. I thought Oregon was kind of the initial pick. They haven't done so well recruiting the offensive line, but Bama has, again, just kind of been on this run where you're just really not counting them out for anybody. And I think they have a track record of, let's be honest, an oversized interior prospect that they've been able to remold. Deontay Brown comes to mind in terms of one of the most recent transformations that Alabama's been able to make. I mean, Evan Neal was like 400 pounds at 1.2. So I do think that type of body relative to knowing and having that self-awareness, hey, I need to trim down a little bit to be more effective. Seeing two proven commodities that are now in the NFL so recently absolutely has to help Alabama. And I think the new offensive line coach, Eric Walford, has really proven his mettle pretty much right out of the gate once he got the gig in Tuscaloosa. And I think he's been able to win some really big time, one-on-one battles with programs that we thought were shoo-ins for some of these other old linemen that have committed to Alabama. So hard to bet against them at this point. And to wrap it all up with the East St. Louis thing, absolutely. For those who don't know, if you're talking about programs in the Midwest, that one has produced as much just raw athlete as any school in the entire region. And that's saying a lot because there's obviously some good football, and football's in the culture and blood up in that part of the country. So yeah, absolutely another good kind of addition and feather in the cap stat. If you bring in an East St. Louis kid, it helps you going forward as well.
You were talking about shaping bodies and whatever. Have you seen the recent pictures of Jaheim Otis?
Unbelievable. I mean, he might be the best example of them all because we dropped him out of the SI 99 because we went to the Alabama-Mississippi week and he was 400 plus pounds. And we were kind of disappointed. He wasn't participating in practices, kind of lethargic in general. And then, so we said, okay, we're going to take the benefit of the doubt away here because that's just a lot to ask for a human being in general. But wow, if you would have told me that in November, December, that he'd be, 340 now and kind of rocked up and nicely built, I would have said no way. Even at
have you ever heard of cool sculpting?
I have, yes.
There ain't enough Freon in the free world to cool sculpt him. I thought. I mean, when I saw him, I mean, I loved him when he committed because I was, Terrence Cody vibes, and
Sure.
You're nostalgic for it. But then I'm like you. I heard same reports at Alabama, Mississippi. I usually go to that game, and my buddies were telling me about it. They were like, don't know. And I was like, well, let's give him a chance. And man, all I can do is give him a ovation and say, good
100%.
Lord, man, what dedication, what kind of something clicked.
Right.
And I don't know that they're going to be able to keep him off the field because if he's been that good at that weight and then he drops, he dropped a third grader.
Yeah, almost 100 pounds. Yeah.
So it's a big deal, and yeah, you just brought that up, and it boggles my mind because he hadn't been there that long. And honest to God, I would not have thought there was no way to do this for him just because you get there as a freshman, you get on Alabama's campus. Sometimes you can sort of get caught up in the moment, and you can also look around and say, well, I'm not playing this year, so I might as well have this extra Twinkie or whatever.
And there's a whole lot of free food and good food, and there's really no limit there. So yeah, it could easily stay that way or go the other way. So yeah, it's absolutely a credit to Jaheim and the staff at Alabama. Yeah, I thought if you'd have told me in 24 months, okay, yeah, he's going to be 330. I said, okay, maybe. Even then, maybe. But to do it in 6 or 7 months, I mean, that is about as good as it gets, and another strong indicator that this staff off the field is just as good, which is pretty scary.
No doubt about it. John, you're the best, my brother. Appreciate it, and appreciate you squeezing me in today. I know it wasn't on your schedule, but that's just the kind of dude you are.
Anytime for you, Luke. Appreciate you. Take care.
All right, buddy. We'll see you soon on the Scoreboard Show.
Absolutely.
All right, my friend. Roll Tide.